Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Divanshu Kumar, founder of Involve, a peer teaching platform. Divanshu has attended IIT Madras for mechanical engineering. Hi Divanshu, welcome to ELI.
Hi, Priyanjan. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It is a great pleasure, and let's get the conversation started.
Divanshu, I'd request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please. Also, before that, I'd like to say that I went through your LinkedIn page and I saw you receiving some award from our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. So, can you please tell us about your experience?
Sure. Thank you. So, my background is that I'm a mechanical engineer, like you said. I graduated from IIT Madras in 2019, last year, but I have been engaged in entrepreneurship for quite a while now. I think 4 years for that matter. And I did not turn out to be an entrepreneur. So essentially, my background is that I was studying mechanical engineering, wanted to do automotives, and yeah, I think robotics and automation was something that I was interested in. So I studied that, but then I was engaged in education as well for quite some time. So started an education startup in my third year of college, and I continued to run that. And then in my final year in college, I developed a robot for septic tank cleaning, which was one of the very innovative prototypes that had come so far during that time. So for that, we won an award, which is the picture that you see in the LinkedIn profile where Prime Minister is facilitating me. So that definitely was a proud moment. And then my interest essentially lies in using technology to solve social problems. So what we essentially do is we like I look for problems that are quite complex in nature, and we ensure that we like look at a lens from human-centric design and then solve that. So that is essentially my background. Yes.
Okay, Divanshu, now tell us about the venture you're building called Involve. What is it all about?
Sure. So I'll talk about Involve first. So Involve essentially is a peer teaching based startup where we essentially what we do is the problem that we're trying to solve is to essentially solve for students' voice and choice. What we realized is in today's education system, if you see, the primary stakeholder, which is the students, they themselves do not have enough ownership or voice to make choices in the ecosystem, right? And the decisions are mostly led by the the teachers and parents, and they just have to follow. The entire dependency of learning today is on the teachers, and the students do not really have any say. So we thought about solving that, and the way we do it is because we have a peer teaching based program. Where essentially, we mentor the senior students of the schools to teach their juniors. And the idea is that through this teaching and learning process, they will have they will understand what teaching and learning is. They will get motivated towards it, and then they will start taking ownership for that. So essentially, the learning will not just be dependent on the teachers; they themselves will start taking ownership for that, and then they will be able to make better decisions out of that, right? So, and this idea becomes immensely powerful, especially in the times of COVID, when teachers aren't really able to reach out to all the students, and that was a persistent challenge even before. We knew that the student-teacher ratio in India in the schools is quite high. So with this essentially with teachers not being able to reach out to students personally and everything being virtual, there's a need for connect, and students learning from each other can actually solve for that. So it can provide for that personal attention, it can provide for that connect that the students really need. So that is precisely what our startup does. Our So even in the National Education Policy 2020 that was recently announced, we see a lot of components around peer tutoring, which is there, because essentially more and more educationists have started believing that getting students a central part in the entire education role is a very, very important piece that we will need to have if we want to solve for the education challenge. So yeah, we have been working on this for past 3 years now. Have worked with about 3,000 plus students, and the journey continues.
Okay, Divanshu, when I see the model of involve, I see a really scalable model. But I'm really curious how you came with this idea that uh, learning can be done from peer to peer.
So essentially, I think peer-to-peer learning is not really a major invention as such. It has been happening for quite some time. But what we had seen so far was that it was mostly an academic concept, and it was not really an operational concept in schools. People had tried it in bits and pieces, but nobody tried to make it a model out of it. My motivation came from my own journey when I was in first and second year of college in Avanti Fellows. So I was a manager at Avanti in my second year of college, and the model of Avanti Fellows is that it's a Harvard based model started by IIT Bombay graduates, where essentially students in their first and second year of college in IITs, they mentor students in the 11th and 12th to get them into IITs. So that is really the model. And when I was a manager, I adopted a couple of techniques that essentially came out of intuition, but later I came to realize that they were a part of peer-to-peer techniques. So my simple thought process was that if 11th class students are facing some issues and 12th class students are anyway have learned that and they're going to give that exam 1 year later, why can't they clear their doubts? Because when they clear their doubts, they will also learn, and at the same time, they will have more robust understanding of their concepts. So this was really the thought process that we started with, right? And we did a pilot in 2016 in a school in Delhi, and we had phenomenal results. And what we also realized was it doesn't just improve the academic understanding of the students, but it also improves problem solving, critical thinking, and collaboration. Very important. And one of the things I think we can call it our innovation in the way we have designed it, but essentially the way structure itself provides is that it gives you these leadership skills in a very experiential manner. So when the students are actually teaching, they experience what it means to be a good communicator, what it means to be a problem solver. If you look at majority of the leadership development programs for school students today, they are workshop based, theoretical, in the sense that you just learn what these concepts are, you don't get to implement it very well. Peer teaching is one such way through which they're able to implement that program, and they're able to experience what these leadership skills mean. When they are mentoring the students, they understand what coaching is, what empathy is, what listening is. When they solve their classroom challenges, they understand all of those things. So in that way, it becomes a very important piece.
Okay. Divanshu, to be honest, I have been part of peer-to-peer learning programs in my college. So what used to happen before exams, there would be a geeky guy or girl who teach the entire class one particular subject. So for every paper there used to be expert in our batch of 60, and so he or she would teach us that paper before the exam night. So uh, the advantages are very clear to me. You understand from someone who is like you, and he can relate to your problems, and a lot of good things about peer-to-peer communication. But whereas I see clear disadvantages also in this model. For example, the people who are teaching, they are not subject matter experts. They don't have vast knowledge in that particular field, so
Correct.
they'll impart the small amount of knowledge they have gathered from textbooks or teachers, and they'll communicate the same thing to the other student. uh, uh, Whereas they are not subject matter experts, they don't have the complete understanding on a particular subject. So that is just one aspect that may narrow down the understanding for the learner on that particular subject. And there may be other problems associated with it also. So what do you see as a person who is operating such a model? What do you see are some of the
So
cons
see,
or maybe challenges to this model?
no, so I completely agree with the disadvantages that you're saying, right? And this is why we have to understand the limitations. These are not disadvantages; these are limitations. So essentially, I never say that peer teaching is a replacement to normal teacher learning, right? So the students are not expected to be subject matter experts. That is really the key part. they are just there to bridge the gap that the teacher cannot do. So essentially, if you look at if you would have heard about last mile delivery in e-commerce, right? So essentially, through peer teaching, we are solving for that in an academic lens. So there is still entire infrastructure about schools, teachers needed, but the last mile delivery, which is about doubt clearance, which is about a personalized attention, which is about understanding some key concepts or paying some extra attention to that particular kid, that teacher is not able to do within the limited time frame of the classroom. That is what peer teaching will solve for. And this is just the academic benefit that I'm talking about. Apart from the academics, it also solves for a lot of collaboration, the 21st century skills that we keep talking about. Collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving. So these will all become very, very important.
Okay. Divanshu, now let us come to the uh, part of entrepreneurship. Would like to ask you what motivated you to become an entrepreneur?
So, like I was saying in the introduction as well, I did not set out to be an entrepreneur. Like it wasn't really the target that I was having in mind. And to be very honest, like when I think I was in my, I just come to my second year, and there was this my best friend, and I think he is the reason I'm an entrepreneur today. He had come back from summer vacation, and he was like, "I'm planning to start my own company," and I was like, "Hi, but you're just a student. How can you start a company?" And he was like, "What? Why do you have to be graduate to start a company?" And then this whole thing, I tried to really understand what entrepreneurship means, what starting up means, right? And then I realized that is a good thing, right? Because one of the things that I really, I think, if I look back, one of the things that I really wanted to be is to be independent in my work, right? I did not want to take like specific guidance from somebody in a like limited time frame. I like work, right? I like solving problems. So I wanted to be independent in that manner. And when I realized that entrepreneurship is something that could provide for that, that's when I chose to be an entrepreneur, right? So that is one lens. The other lens is that I just got this idea from the Avanti Fellows thing, and we did a pilot. When we did a pilot, it wasn't really an intention to start a company. The thing that happened after the pilot is that we got two national media coverage. We got a lot of support from like people around. And when we went to a couple of competitions, they said that this is a wonderful idea. Why don't you take it up? So I think it was more like people were telling, "Yeah, this is a good idea. Why don't you just give it a try?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm in college. I do not really have much to do. Let's just give it a shot." And it turned out that we were able to do well, and like step by step, we were able to build a company. So that is how I would say that I became an entrepreneur.
Okay. When you build a venture, you need a lot of people to work alongside with you and take forward your vision. How did you find such people for your venture?
So I think one thing that you very clearly pointed out was that you need to have a vision. That is what people generally get attached to. Because unless you have a vision, building a team becomes very, very difficult. Because they do not know what they are getting into. What they don't know what is the problem that they're solving. So essentially, I think for us, that part was pretty clear. We wanted to provide, even though we couldn't articulate it at that point of time, the what was visible that we wanted to provide the ownership of learning on the students, and that was something that a lot of people resonated with. So that is one. Second, I think I was a bit lucky also in this sense because my co-founder, right, he was in the my team of Avanti. So I was a manager, he was a mentor, he was just 1 year junior. And then when I proposed this idea to the entire team that I'm trying to do a pilot like this, would you guys want to join? So a couple of people joined from there, and then they have been with me since then. Because what we did together in the first pilot, that was inspiring enough for us to continue. And today, one of those guys is my co-founder, and we have built this organization together. So I think one for me would be having a good idea about what you're going to do. Second would be having 100% honesty. In like this is not a very smooth journey, right? There is a lot of ups and downs. So being honest with people and telling them that yeah, this is what you have to expect from this is a very important piece. A lot of times people just overpromise saying that yeah, we are going to change the world in 1 year. You'll get rich, XYZ, whatever that motivation might be for that person, right? That isn't something that is very right. So essentially, when we were there, and we realized that even after college we will be taking it up. I was the first one to say that, boss, I will let go of my placements, right? So building trust with the person that you want to run the company with is a very important piece of starting up and co-founding a team. That I would say about the co-founders as such. In terms of the larger team that you build, I think a very important part would be to again the vision of the organization, and second would be to care for the team. Like when we were one thing I was very clear about was that we will get people who are like-minded individuals, who actually believe in the vision, who understand the values that we bring, at the same time who can care and trust for each other. Because when you're building a team in the initial phases, you're literally kind of living together. You are all the time together. You go out to have the same lunch. Sometimes you're living together. Sometimes you like just have all the time. Like you're eating together and all of that. So there is more than a professional connect that you build with the co-founder or the earlier team, and that's something that you should be able to understand, right? So I think in that way, if you care and trust for the team members that you have brought with you, that will be significant enough to do that. The last part of this team building, I think, is setting the right expectations. That is a very clear piece that a lot of people in the hurry to build team, they kind of try to jump that. If people's expectations are not clear and that you are not on the same page about this, whether after 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year, things are going to fall down. That bubble is going to burst. So you really have to ensure in that lens that the expectations of what the person wants from the company after 5 years, 10 years, or even in the short term is something that should be very, very clear.
Okay. I have two questions coming to my mind from what you spoke just now. You said many people joined you seeing your vision. They believe in your vision. So tell us, what is your vision?
Right. So, so I think the articulation of vision has quite come now. Essentially, what we want to develop is uh, develop agency in students. And primarily, I'm talking about school students. There's a vision statement of the organization that reads: "We imagine a world where students are trusted and empowered to become the best version of themselves." It's a very broader vision, but essentially, what we're trying to say is that the problem is that students today do not have any voice and choice in the education ecosystem. So, how do you develop that agency, and how do you make students self-reliant, not just now, but for the future? That is really the key part of our vision. We want to empower the students to make them self-reliant.
Okay, and here is my other question. You said you let go your placement, college placement, and when you are from IIT, the placement is a big deal. How did your family reacted when you said that I'm letting go the placement?
So I think one thing that I've been very fortunate to have is the support from the family. Like I cannot thank my parents enough for that. When I told them that I'll be skipping placements and I'll not be sitting for that, the only question that they asked me was, "Would you be happy with your decision that you are making?" And when I said that yes, I understand the decision that I'm making, they let me do that. And I think that is the so even the vision of our organization has evolved from the way my upbringing has been. My parents always trusted me to make my own decisions, and that is essentially the aspect that we want to bring in today's education as well. How do we build like bridge that trust deficit between the students and the ecosystem? Anyway, coming to my placements, I think my relatives were not very happy because there is this thing about करोड़ रुपया का जॉब मिलेगा आईआईटी वालों को, so all of that, and Bihar, it is a huge thing. Bihar में, but I'm from Bihar, so Bihar में everybody, like a lot of people who go to IIT, they go to do better jobs. So I think that was an issue that time, but I think we were able to manage it well because for one, I was completely fine with taking that risk. So I think what matters in this case when you do that is that whether you are confident enough to make that decision or not. Because ultimately, as long as people are not with you, as long as your confidence is with you, you'll still be able to cross the bridge. So that was one thing. And second thing was that we were able to get good media publicity. So that acted as time to time that acted as a band-aid to all the things that relatives were saying to my parents. So anytime they would still a conversation like that would come up, I'll just send a newspaper article that would have come 1 to 2 weeks back to my parents, and I would say, put it in the family WhatsApp group. So
Okay.
so that kind of started solving for that in some sense.
Okay. No wonder, you have put the photo of a prime minister giving you some
So
prize.
yeah, you have to be like clever that way.
Okay. Divanshu, now tell us what are the challenges you have faced along the way while building and growing this venture?
Sure, sure. So essentially, uh, I think initially we had a lot of challenge because one thing that I think I'm not very good at is planning for the long term. Like I'm still learning that, right? So it's initially when we did the pilot and we realized that we should start a venture. I had a founding member who had volunteered to quit his job in Pune and come to Chennai because I and Samyak, who is my co-founder now, we were still in college, so we couldn't do a full-time job. We needed a full-time person. So it was 2017, and then the initial thought was that we had a prize money where we had won 35,000. We had that runway for a couple of months, and then we would be able to get a private school who would pay us, and then the operational cost will get like covered. That was the thought where we went with. Did not think anything about what if that plan A fails. So we did not think about that. So started the venture. Avnish came to Chennai. Yeah, my hostel room became the office, and then we were working. And then we were actually successful in getting the first customer in the second month, which was a good thing. And so everything was fine. We were very happy. And then after 2 months, they kick us out of the school, and that was the only source of income. And that time we have also onboarded one more team member. I'll talk to you about the story. I think that story is very important. So I'll probably after this question I'll tell.
Sure,
So
sure. Please go on.
yeah, just a minute. I think the light is not there. I'll just get the light back. Yeah. So essentially, what I was saying is that uh, we got kicked out of the school, and then there was no revenues. So we were like, boss, we don't have revenues. We have two paying people. There are some operational costs. We are still in college. We don't have savings. What do we do? Like those two people have trusted us and then quit their jobs. How are we going to make it work? So what happened after that was we had to solve for this. Like short term, so we definitely had to solve for this. So I started taking tuitions. And if you're from IT, tuitions really pay well. So essentially for 3 months, my schedule was like 8 to 2 I would do college, 2 to 8 I would be in office, and then 8 to 11 I would teach. And that teaching money that I was getting, that is something that I would funnel back into the company. And this was one of the toughest time that I imagine about building a company, because then it is all about perseverance, not giving up, right? So 3 months I did that, and then obviously things started becoming better, and we got selected for a Singapore international program. Then we got selected for an incubation program in Bangalore, which gave us 10 lakh rupees of money. So a lot of things happened during that time. That was 2018. But those 3 months were one of the most difficult challenges, because that time you really cannot go back to other people and say, because then they would be like, "हाँ पहले ही बोला था difficult हुआ क्यों किया?" So I think that was one of the earlier challenges that we faced. Second challenge that we faced was I think about so initially when you're doing it for the first 6-7 months or so, people just trust you for that. You're trying to do something new. Let's support them. But then after that, it really becomes important that you are able to justify what you're doing, that your work actually makes sense. And during that time, we so a lot of people told us that you should do this, you should do that, and that was really getting confusing. And we weren't. So there was a time where we were not sure what should we actually focusing on, because if the ecosystem is wanting us to focus on something else, the push is towards something else, and you are trying to create something that is not really the demand of the time, then that is against you, right? And I still think that obviously because of COVID, our idea has gotten a lot of boost, but otherwise we were before time. Like people are still not ready for students being peer tutors, right? So in that lens, a lot of time we thought that should we change the approach, should we not do what we do, and that mentally was quite tiring. Financially, it was not quite tiring. Financially tiring was the time when I was talking about like 2017, but this was mentally tiring. But I think over time, when we saw a lot of validations, we talked to a lot of research groups, academic researchers, and we realized that no, we are on the right path. People have spent decades studying this model. So if we are doing this, like they were not fools. So that time, I think to mentally get that confidence for me and for the team and for to prove to other people also, we started doing a lot of research. That still becomes a backbone of Involve right now. We spend a lot of like energy in research and essentially studying the models that have worked, because in education you need that. So I think these were some of the challenges, and obviously apart from these, some of the challenges are really common to entrepreneurs. The challenges being like that sometimes you will feel that the ship is sinking,
Mm.
and my friend puts it really well. He says that starting up is like saving a sinking ship. Like just before you are able to solve for one problem, the other problem will already have come up. So it is just a continuous journey, and that is the like exciting part about entrepreneurship. So be it about sometimes having a financial crunch, or sometimes getting a comparative mindset that my friends are earning in lakhs, I am not able to do that.
Mm.
Is that the right call that I made? So a lot of things are there, but I think these are fairly common to all the other entrepreneurs as well.
Okay. Divanshu, tell us, have you ever raised funds or maybe tried pitching to investors? If you have, tell us some of the funny experiences you have come across.
Funny experience. Oh, I have a couple of funny experiences. Yes. So there was this one person that I went to, and he was quite a senior person. Okay, and we were trying to pitch him about Involve, and we explained about the model, and then he told me that I want to judge how capable you guys are to pull up what you're saying, and then he gave us a model to think about a vocational training program, right? He gave us some constraints and he said that how would you design that? You have this much amount of money and all of this. I and Samek was there, like, and we spent about an hour, like thinking about it, and we have traveled 60 kilometers to meet that person, like, and at that time it was early stage, so we had to ask for a bike from somebody, take that bike and all of that. And then after 1 month, we presented him the thing, and then he was quite much happy with that. And then he was like, "Forget Involve. I will do money for you to do this. Would you do that?"
Okay.
And I was like, "What? We are doing this for last 1 year. We have come to pitch you about Involve. This is our vision. And in just 1 hour, you are asking us to do something else, and then you're saying that that's how we are give you money." And that guy wasn't like very early entrant into the market. Like he was there for quite some time. So I think that was one of the funnier incidents. Uh, the other funnier incident that happened was we went to this investor pitch, and we had a couple of rounds. So we were in the finale, and then we couldn't get into the top three. So I went to, these I have two kind of experiences of that. One experience was that where the judge told that, "Arey, you are from IIT, you would anyway get funding. So we did not prioritize you guys."
Okay.
And I was like, if this was the case, you could have just told earlier. Like, if you're getting us into the competition, what do you mean when you say that you will have other opportunities? So
Okay.
that was, and I was quite angry on that. So that was one. The other was that where there were three judges. So I have the habit that I take feedback after the competition from each and every judge just to understand their mindset.
Mm.
And there was this competition where there were three judges, and all three were telling exactly opposite feedback about our company than
Mm.
the other person.
Okay.
So somebody would say that I don't think this is scalable, something, but somebody would say that, oh, I think this is very scalable, but this is not impactful at all.
Okay.
And I was like, when you're doing the marking, like,
Mm.
there's a common pitch. How can the judgment be so very different, exactly opposite of each other?
Okay.
But yeah, I think these are things that happen all the time when you do this. Like people have different mindsets. So
Okay. Divanshu, this is these are some of the funny statements I hear a lot actually. I asked another founder about this about some similar queries, and what he said was Indian investors and investors in US, there is a general difference. Investors in US, they will ask you how different your product is, what is unique about it, and Indian investors, they'll see uh, how your product or how your business model is similar to successful models. They want tried and tested models. They don't want to hear anything new. So how would you comment on that? Is it true?
So, so essentially, see, though it looks like it is a surface level problem, it is really not. Like it's kind of expected. Uh, the risk taking ability comes from your exposure levels,
Hmm.
right? So investor ecosystem in India is still a bit like developing. Like in US, it is quite mature. In India, it is still like kind of developing. So apart from some marquee investors and even some foundations, the risk taking ability is a bit less.
Hmm.
So they want to invest in models that they have seen working in some sense, and they try to find patterns. They try to find relatability,
Hmm.
right? So that is essentially the key here. However, I would still say that there are some people who are really looking for innovative models. They are willing to take the risk, but I think yeah, there's definitely a the path for us to grow and understand that unique models are the ones that need to be bet on in entrepreneurship.
Okay. Divanshu, let's forget about funding and all. Tell us what are the some of the common lessons that you have learned. In fact, any founder will learn who has become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think both of the lessons are quite common as such. But there was this thing that I was reading yesterday in a book, and I just want to quote that, where the person says that your journey itself is the destination.
Okay.
And I think
Uh, Divanshu,
hello,
yeah, I had lost you in
yeah.
between.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Something happened. But anyways, so you're talking about this question where you said about some common lessons in entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
So I was just saying that there was this book I was reading yesterday, and there's a very beautiful quote here which says that the author has found out that the journey itself is the destination.
Hmm.
Like, people often talk about what is their destination, what is their purpose, and he says that figuring out the journey itself is the destination. So I think that is very true to entrepreneurship. My lesson is that uh, definitely goals, targets, and all of these things are there, but essentially the journey that you take, that itself is one of the most enriching things that you will do or you will learn in entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
So that is one. Apart from that, I think a common thing I've learned about entrepreneurship is that you have to really know why you are an entrepreneur. Because if your actual motivations do not match with why you're doing entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
uh, things will not sustain. Somewhere, sometime you will start feeling a sense of dejection. Why am I doing this? Is it the right path for me? Things like that. So because I had that, I went through that. So I think that that is very, very important. The other learning that I had about entrepreneurship is that entrepreneurship is much more than the successes that you see in papers.
Okay.
Like you cannot put a ROI, tangible ROI in that,
Hmm.
right? And you have to really understand whether you are okay with that grill or not. That the entire drill of ups and downs, things not being like going as expected. So if you're okay with that, then only you should go about entrepreneurship and go forward. Otherwise, you should probably and that is where I say to people that 9 to 5 doing a job is not a bad thing. It's just a matter of choice.
Okay.
What is it that you want as an entrepreneur?
Hmm.
Like I have had people who wanted to join in the founding team, and sooner they realized that it did not work well for them, and they left, and that's completely fine, right? Initially I had this belief that everybody should be an entrepreneur, but then I later realized my own misunderstanding that uh, people should be able to make their own choices, and maybe it is not for everybody. Like if you're okay with that kind of setup where you have predictability, that's okay. If you're okay with this kind of thing, that is also okay. So I think that would be the thing. And yeah, I precisely that, and the major thing that you come to realize also that even though you start the company, the the company is not about you.
Okay.
Company is about things which are larger than you, and you really have to understand that.
Mm.
And I think I cannot emphasize this enough because I took a lot of time for me to understand that. The problem, the company, everybody becomes larger than you the moment you build a team and the moment you like let's say external money, because then the external stakeholders get involved.
Okay.
So you cannot call the shots the way you want to. You really have to think about the entire sort of the team members and the company as well. And essentially, you'll have to prioritize them, which is and which is where the learning about the culture and the value of the company comes in. What is your priority? If you want to, do you want to make decisions keeping the customers in focus? Do you want to make the decisions keeping the team in focus? Depending on whatever that is, you have to take the decisions according to that. And you really have to be very clear about that, because if you're not clear about it, then every day you will be sinking in that thought process, did I make the right decision or not?
I think that is a very interesting statement, and I agree to it as well. Even though you build a company, company is not about you. In fact, this applies to anything you are building. You are building a group, or building a society, or building a system. System is always above you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That is very, and you don't have that understanding in the beginning, and generally people don't. It is only over time that you are able to understand this. So that has been my major learning.
Okay, Divanshu, we are almost done with the interview and up with the time. I have only one question left. How would you suggest our audience to start their journey as entrepreneurs?
I think my I would give two kind of advices which might sound a bit like what do you say, contradictory in their own sense.
Sure.
One is that people should try entrepreneurship whenever they get a chance. Like that is a must, because the amount of learning that you get and the amount of exposure that you get is phenomenal, right? So if you get a chance, if you're interested in it, just go for it. Uh, if you can plan it well, then the risk will not really be. How should I put this? If you're able to estimate your risks and you're okay with that, then take that plunge, right? So trying out would give you a very good exposure. That is one. Second thing is that you should really understand entrepreneurship before jumping into it. Like, and I'm not saying that you should understand the market or the company that you're building, but the essence of entrepreneurship you should understand. And if you think that you're not the right fit for that, it is completely fine to not go there. Right? So that is the thing that you should start with. Because in entrepreneurship, there will be a lot of times they will be having setbacks, you will be having a lot of challenges, and you will sometimes feel really alone. So unless you're okay with that for that time being, do not get into that process, because otherwise you will just come dejected after that, right? That is second. And I think the third part that I would want to tell people is that money cannot be the reason that you want to start up.
Okay.
Like it can be in some sense if you're looking for immediate returns as such, but if you're looking to be in starting in a entrepreneurship for a long term, your motivations have to be something apart from money. It can be your closeness to the customers for which you're building the product. It can be the product itself. It can be the problem that you're solving, whatever that is, but it has to be bigger than the aspect of money. Money is one of the outcomes for that. It is not the sole objective.
Okay. Money is a byproduct.
Yes.
On that note, I'll close this session, and it was a great pleasure to host you here at ELI. and our audience
It was great.
have got great lessons from this video. Thanks for your time, Divanshu, and our best wishes for involved.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Priya. Thank you so much.
Viewers, you can follow and connect with Divanshu on LinkedIn by typing Divanshu Kumar. Also, do visit their website if you want to teach to the younger students. So, whom do you want to have here at ELI for next episode? Do let me know in comments below. We will be back. Stay tuned to ELI.